Hey y'all, how are you doing? I'm great. Thank you so much for asking. It's me, Kim, and I'm back for another video. This video is a conversation with actress and activist Jameela Jamil. You probably know her for her role on the hit series The Good Place. People freaking love that show, and I get it. But I was first drawn to her because of her outspokenness on the way that celebrities so brazenly hawk diet culture, those appetite suppressant lollipops, the laxative teas, the flat tummy teas, the waist trainers. I really, really hate that. I think it's really damaging. And so we bonded over that. I think because we both have a history of body dysmorphia and eating disorders, it was really easy for us to have conversations about that. I really respect her work and the way that she has used her platform to just speak truth because she has a lot to lose. So we talked about that. We talked about cancel culture, whatever that means. We talked about our desire to see a wide array of bodies and sexualities represented on social media and in the mainstream. It was great. She took a lot of time to talk to me. I appreciate her enormously. Here's our conversation. So first of all, Jameela, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to me. I'm a big fan.
Thank you for having me. I'm a big fan of yours.
Yes. Okay. So I have gone through so many of your interviews, read the articles about you. So I have some questions. I've heard you talk about how psychologically damaging it was growing up in England when the mainstream standard of beauty was very white, very thin, blonde. And I can definitely relate to that. I grew up in predominantly white neighborhoods, and those images were like terrorizing. And I wonder how you feel now that the mainstream standard of beauty has shifted a little bit, and so many white women are falling over themselves to look exotic.
It's really confusing. So, I mean, listen, the damage of growing up as a South Asian in England is, especially in the 90s, was that the fact that it was such a racist time, and we never saw South Asians represented, whatsoever. And we never got to be the love interest in the film. We were never the hero. South Asian men as well as women, like, we were just erased. And so therefore I grew up just thinking there was something so wrong with the way I looked. I thought I needed a Eurocentric nose, a smaller nose. I wanted to have smaller lips because everyone had small thin lips back then, the kind of Carmen Cass and Meg Ryan, etc. I hated the fact that I had big eyes. I thought my eyes were too big and too slanted. I was so soaked in self-hatred in a way that has still impacted the way that I see myself now as an adult. And that's why it's very weird to see myself on magazine covers or ever be told that I have the quote unquote pretty privilege, or all these different things. I understand why people say that, because I fit into certain nowadays societal acceptable norms. But for me, I think I will always remember myself as feeling like one of the only South Asians in my school, the ugliest, the fattest, and just sort of hating where I come from and what I look like, and not seeing the tremendous beauty in how different and interesting our faces are, because that is the damage of erasure. So it's taken me really until the last couple of years to lean into my own ethnicity in general. It's been a whole complicated thing because it stops you from culturally investing in yourself because you are so desperate. You're looking at something else as the ideal. And, thank God for Black women. Otherwise, I think I would have completely fallen apart back then. At least I had people like Queen Latifah or Halle Berry or like Tia and Tamara to look to someone who looked a bit closer to me than a blonde, thin white woman. Yeah. And so it was definitely complicated, and I'm really here for, while I think it's strange the measures that people take in order to look more exotic, as you say, I think I'm at least glad to see that we're now being represented and we're considered an ideal of beauty. And I'm glad that at least when someone like, you or me or Priyanka or whoever is on a cover of a magazine, little girls who look like us can imagine themselves as someone else's love interest or someone that people consider to be worthy or valuable. I'm glad to be that representation because I know how damaging it was not having it.
I remember Jennifer Lopez and Beyonce being so important because I'm like look curvier. I have like a curvier bottom half. And I just remember like the white kids like making me feel like I was fat. Like I've never been overweight or whatever, but when you have a different kind of body, it's a big deal. And so that representation was so freaking important for me. Like, transformational.
100%.
And now I love being in community with other Black women, other women with darker skin and kinkier hair and broader noses. And we can just love up on each other and tell each other how beautiful we are and how much we matter.
Truly, I feel the same way. Also, I imagine, like, for all of my Black friends when we were growing up, anyone who had darker skin still didn't feel represented, even with the Black talent that was around at that time, because it was still very light skinned. Everyone had very like petite features, as in typically Eurocentric features. And so I think that now to see the diversity amongst agents, like for us to have like Mindy Kaling and like just a variety of different faces, Kumail, and the same thing I imagine for you within your community, Viola Davis, etc., being able to see more diversity in what within our culture seems so beautiful. And also, like, another interesting thing I think about the fact that white women now want to look more exotic is the fact that we haven't really addressed, especially within my culture, I can't speak to yours, but it's still really sad to me that in South Asia we still want to look like white women. Like, there's so much, not me myself, but there's still so much bleaching, still so much plastic surgery. So it's this hilarious trick of marketing against women of, if you are white, they're like, oh no, you need to go and tan yourself to look brown, and you need to make yourself look more exotic and pump your lips. And if you are a brown person, you must bleach yourself to look white and cut yourself up so that you will look closer to something that you are not. The target with women is just to make sure that we never, ever, ever are content with what we are. Whatever we are, it's wrong and it must be fixed. And you must spend all of your money on fixing that so that you can be attractive to straight men.
Yeah. You know, for Black women, it is not necessarily aspiring to look like a white woman, but absolutely lighter skin is privilege. So when I mention, you know, Beyonce and Jennifer Lopez being like the ideals because they were presented as the pinnacle of beauty, like I was grasping at straws, right? Like those, they don't, right? But I was just like, okay, well, they're not white, so let me try to, but honestly, they do not represent me or women with dark, I mean, you know, so we are definitely still trying to undo that socialization that it is smaller features, lighter skin. And then now, you know, one of the reasons why I have a problem with Instagram is now we have the teeny tiny waist, huge ass, huge boobs thing where it's like, nobody has that.
Nobody. Truly. It's just, again, it's setting the bar in a place, it's setting the bar at a level where we can't possibly ever achieve it. You know, in the 90s, you and I think we're around the same age. We grew up with heroin chic. And it just goes to show how fucking racist the kind of that archetype is, and the fact that people from where you are from or I am from, we carry curves traditionally. Some of us might vary, but we carry curves in different places. I will always have big Indian hips, but I hated my hips. I hated my thighs. I hated being curvy when I was little. But at least that felt like it was, and I'm not commending heroin chic at all, but at least they were just giving us one thing to strive towards. Now we have to have the same tiny waist of heroin chic, but with these gigantic boobs and bigger bottoms and still skinny thighs and skinny arms. It just doesn't fucking work that way. That's not how most human beings work. But again, they're doing it so that we will have to spend all of our time thinking about the way that we look, wishing that we look different, and spending our time and money on focusing on how to achieve something that isn't naturally there for us. I know I've said this before, but I honestly think it's a conspiracy against women to make sure that we are spending our time and our energy outside of school or family or mental health or business. Because look how many hours we spend thinking about this shit. I've lost years of my life to this. If I count up all the minutes I spent either counting calories or standing in the mirror crying, hating myself, wishing I looked like anyone else. What a waste. Yes. So I guess that's why I rally so hard now in the opposite direction, to try and just be, just to encourage people that, you know, look, if you can't love yourself, that's okay, but at least try to find some sort of form of neutrality where you can get past it in order to focus on what will actually make you happy and what will actually be fulfilling to look back on when you're on your deathbed one day.
Yeah. So how do you deal with the fact that now you're a famous person and there are definitely people who are looking at you and saying, oh, I wish I looked like Jameela?
I think it's really weird, and I still have really bad body and face dysmorphia, so it's incredibly surreal to me. I'm very grateful for the fact that people are kind to me, considering my looks were the biggest source of me being bullied when I was younger. So it's very strange and surreal. And also some people now say that I have too much quote unquote pretty privilege or slim privilege to be able to speak out about the egregious body and beauty standards in our industry. And while I understand where people are coming from, that it is frustrating when we only listen to the privileged, we don't listen to the marginalized. We blame the marginalized for their marginalization. And so we silence them by calling them jealous and bitter and just not good enough. And then we try to silence the privileged. And then in that case, no one ever gets to speak out. So It's a very clever way of making sure the conversation never gets had. But it is definitely, it's peculiar, but I'm glad to see that people like a South Asian face, because I didn't know that was a thing when I was younger.
Yeah. It's so tricky, Jameela, because it's a catch-22. I think it is your responsibility as somebody who has enormous amounts of privilege and access to these huge platforms to push these ideas forward. But I do understand the concern that folks have about the most privileged, the people at the top of this hierarchy getting the most shine, and that means they get the most resources. So how do you balance knowing what you have to do, knowing that these are really important conversations, but also acknowledging the enormous privilege that you have and maybe making sure other more marginalized voices can enter the conversation through you?
So it was really interesting. I think I've been speaking out about this stuff for about 14 years now, and at least 11 years of my career. It's so funny that when people started to pick up my words in 2018, they not only acted like I'd never said those things before, whereas I'm on camera talking about this shit since I was 19 years old, but they also acted like no one had ever said it before, which was incredibly frustrating to me. The way that, so what was I going to say? So back in 2018, when, what I was saying started kind of exploding and going viral everywhere, a lot of people were like, pass the mic. But I didn't have the mic yet. I had 16,000 followers on Instagram. And so I always knew what I was planning to do, which was to build up enough of a stage that I could then just share it with everyone. But I needed a minute to do it. And I think that people were so impatient with me. And I understand that because they're fucking tired of waiting. But I noticed in my own experience with the public, everyone was like, you're taking up too much space. And I was like, I know, just trust me. I've got a plan. And what I was doing was building a platform that I could then pass over almost exclusively to other people. And that's what iWeigh is. I've been building it for 2 years. We have 1.2 million followers on Instagram. We have a YouTube channel, a podcast network. And it's not just me interviewing amazing young activists, not just the famous ones, the ones who are also just up and coming, 16 years old from all around the world. But also now I'm able to, because I fund the company myself, I'm able to pay for them to do their own interview shows where I'm no longer on set. And they are the ones I'm able to pass the mic. I just didn't have the mic before. I had a hairbrush that you could pretend was the mic. But now I actually have something to pass over. It just takes a minute. And I think it's really important that the privileged start the conversation, but we do not carry it through to the end. We start the conversation and then we bring in the actual experts who are living that experience to take over. And so that's what I'm trying to do. It just takes a minute. And so I understand people's frustration, but these things take time.
Yeah. I checked out your YouTube channel and I was really impressed by the range of people, doctors, activists, cultural workers, celebrities. Like, you've really curated something different.
Thank you. I'm trying. I'm learning all the time, but we're just trying to make sure that we reach everyone and all people from different ages and backgrounds, because what I want iWeigh to be is an education platform. And Christ, if ever we learned that people are backwards in their knowledge or they are ignorant and they don't know where to start helping, and their silence is violence and complicity, it's this year. And so I'd already been building this platform for 2 years as somewhere that if you are someone who doesn't know anything about other communities or specific communities and you want to learn but you don't know where to start, because Twitter is not it. It's such an intimidating and unforgiving space. And the internet in general can be so unforgiving. And so there's so much misinformation out there. So I just wanted to create a platform that was overseen by experts that would be a starting point for anyone, wherever you are at in your knowledge. We have something for you so that you can join us in supporting other communities. We just want to create empathy, and we believe that information is power and it is the source to empathy. It's the gateway. And so that's what I weigh now is. And, you know, I'm sure we've still got more things that we need to improve on. But if you have any notes, I'm open.
Oh yeah, no, I'll be sure to, like, I definitely think that I like know so many people I feel like you should talk to. Like, I'll DM you about it. Yeah.
I would love that.
Let's talk about IY, because I feel like we connected over our mutual disdain for like diet culture and famous people selling those scammy weight loss products.
Yeah.
And yeah, and like I can call it out because like I'm not gonna be an entertainer and I'm never gonna see these people, but like you are in Hollywood and you are gonna see these people. So I wonder if you are ever concerned that speaking out in this way, literally calling people out because you're not afraid to name a name, do you worry that that is going to prevent you from getting work or booking a job?
No, I don't care. Like, I never got into this industry with the purpose of becoming famous. I got into it because I was broke and supporting two disabled people, and it was £1,000 a day. The first job I got in show business. I was an English teacher who didn't plan on this. So this industry for me is fun and a huge privilege, but also it is mostly it's an opportunity for me to try to create as much awareness about as many things as I can so that no child grows up as unprepared for the world as I was, as fucked up as I was, as like marinated in shame as I was. I was so mentally ill for most of my life, and it all could have been avoided with just more transparency and more information. And so for me, this industry is just an opportunity for me to reach as many people as I can. So no, I don't care. And I do run into these people. And it is awkward, and it's definitely awkward for mutual friends, but I'm fucking right about what I'm saying, and I will die on this hill. You can put my grave up on this hill because this is where I'm going down. I am so appalled and disgusted by anyone who already has the amount of privilege that we have and are so greedy that they will risk the lives of young people just to peddle not only such an unrealistic and offensive ideal, but also products that send up to 24,000 teens a year to the emergency room. They don't write there's no self-awareness, there's no accountability. They don't write the side effects on the products under their photoshopped fucking posts. They also don't say that they never drink these products. Even in the photographs, they're just standing next to the product. We never see them actually drink it because it's fucking poison. And I'm currently, I'll tell you about this in a minute, but I'm working on a bill to make sure that in America, under 18s won't even be able to access these products anymore. And they understand that a lot of them have the boys muscle building products have Viagra and heavy metals in them. Girls stuff is full of speed and or similar things and laxatives. And so I'm just horrified that anyone with this much power would participate in this culture of damaging kids so much. We're at the highest ever epidemic of eating disorders, of self-harm, of teen cosmetic surgery, of suicidal tendencies. To do this for cash just feels so empty and disappointing. And if they all stop, I'm not trying to cancel anyone. I'm not trying to cancel the Kardashians. Also, you can't cancel white passing fucking billionaires. But I don't believe in that. I think that someone like Kim can do amazing things with her platform. And, you know, she's putting it in areas that I think she's putting her privilege in areas that are very cool. And if that, you know, people like them or influencers, all of these celebrities who are involved in this industry, as soon as they stop, I will get off their dick. I don't enjoy this. I don't find this fun. This isn't a sport for me. I'm not the Punisher, but we need to make sure that people see this as shameful, and we need to make sure that young kids understand what they're seeing, and that these people have personal trainers, dietitians, surgeons, and Photoshop technicians who work for them full time in order to give them this aesthetic. I meet these people in real life. None of them look the way they do on Instagram.
Yeah. You know, I think it is so distasteful for these people who have so much money to peddle this shit. I'm like, it's like how capitalism has warped our brains that you think you just have to get as much money. Like, why? I don't understand why. You don't even need, like, when I'm looking at Kim Kardashian selling these fucking lollipops, I'm like, you are rich. Why?
I know. That's what I wrote under it. I was like, I think it was maybe Chloe or something. I just wrote in caps lock, are you poor? Are you at death's door and you need this to pay a medical bill? Why on earth would you take the money? And they get like people this is not a Kardashian issue. This is all influencers who jumped on this bandwagon, and loads of actresses and singers. Everyone did it. And if the only thing I've ever achieved in my career is making it embarrassing to sell diet and detox products, then I am happy. I will die happy. And I think I've had a part to play in that. I made that disgusting video. It was a fake advert for a tummy tea where I then shat fire in the video. And I made my poor boyfriend, who is a proper music producer, I made him produce the shit and fart vocals on that video, and it went viral around the world. And since then, we have seen a distinct drop in the amount of celebrities selling diet and detox laxative products. So I'm proud of that. But yeah, I'm horrified. And the lies that they tell women, that they pretend to care about their fans. I think one of the most offensive things I ever said about specifically the Kardashians is that, but I meant this to all influencers everywhere, is your pockets aligned with the blood and shit of teenage girls. That's it. That's what their legacy is if they don't stop doing this.
Yes.
And so
long-term eating disorders that are going to last long beyond the $100,000 that you get. Like, why?
I also felt really frustrated when certain women who try and stick up for them, or just normally women, but people who just like, look, you know, it's everyone knows that these products don't work. So why are you making a big deal of this? No one actually thinks these products make these people thinner. And it's like, you're a grown adult. Teenagers do. I did. When I was 12 and 13, I believed everything I wrote. That was the beginning of diet culture becoming mainstream. I did every single fad diet, Atkins, the oolong tea that Oprah was saying that you should drink 5 times a day. And I was sitting there caffeinated beyond like repair. All the different tricks. The supermodels were saying that they eat 500 calories a day. I did that. Any single tip on the internet or given by an actress. I remember Gwyneth Paltrow saying that she eats naked in front of the mirror every day. And so I started doing that, which, by the way, is not advisable in restaurants. So all these tips and tricks to try and be emaciated. And all the products and the laxatives and everything. I had an eating disorder for 2 decades, massively perpetuated by our diet culture in our mainstream media, and how normalized it is, and how a woman who has an okay relationship with her body and food feels like a miracle. It's shocking to me when I meet a woman who has a civilized relationship with food and her body, because it felt completely normal for us all to be perpetually on diets and hating ourselves until the day that we die.
Yes, yes. I mean, the idea that everybody knows that stuff doesn't work is that's bullshit. It's just not true. It's just not true.
Teenagers don't know.
Well, I'm gonna be honest. Some adults don't know. Okay,
true.
So I think it is really important. That's why I so respect what you are doing. It's really important for everybody who is committed to dismantling this stuff to call it out as loudly and forcefully as possible. You know, I have people who message me and say, like, thank you so much. Like, you make me feel like I'm not alone, because I have had an eating disorder too. And like, I'm really just like putting it out plainly. Like, this shit is bullshit. Like, these people are opportunists. And it's so normalized on it's like it's just another hustle. And I'm like, you guys, people are suffering because of this. Like, all money is not worth it.
No, truly. And it impacts people of all different genders. It also impacts men and their taste. Like, I have male friends who've been telling me that the unrealistic body standards that are perpetuated online and the way that women pressure themselves look has impacted what they are attracted to. And now they're looking for this unrealistic ideal that they almost never find in real life anyway. And it's harder to literally get a fucking erection because your taste is being honed to what is essentially AI. It's Lara Croft.
Yes.
So it doesn't make any sense. And I love how open you are about it. And I think it's really important that people like you and me speak out about eating disorders, because also the world sees eating disorders as a white woman problem.
Yeah.
They don't think that Black women and brown women have eating disorders. They just look at us as people. We're not in the picture. We're never in the films about eating disorders. We're never in the campaigns or the adverts about it, you know, the charity adverts. It's always like the frail white girl. And it's so important that people realize that us with our naturally curvier bodies, as, you know, technically with, you know, from our racial backgrounds, we are actually high in numbers of self-loathing and eating disorders and self-harm. And so it's hugely important to have that representation.
It is. And I hope that there are like people like doing real like scholarly work around this. I've tried to write things and make videos and produce podcasts about Black women in particular and eating disorders and body dysmorphia. There is no data. There are no data sets. There's no large scale surveys. There's a real paucity of information about this. And I'm like, we need numbers. We need that. We need to be able to track this over time.
And our mothers need to be educated, and our fathers and our schools. There's no information. I can't believe how much I know about fucking geography, and yet I don't know anything about sexual consent. I don't know anything about how social media works or Photoshop. Yeah. I don't know anything about eating disorders or mental health issues. I was left so unprepared for real life when I walked out of school at 16 years old, and it has to change. And I guess that's why, similarly to you, I suppose, although you're a much better writer than me, I've just dedicated my life to trying to be someone who will inform others. All we have to do, I'm not a hero. I'm not trying to go around saving people. I believe in people's intelligence. And I believe that if you just arm them with the information, they will make the right intuitive decision. And that's because the industry knows that people have a natural instinctive intelligence. They therefore hide all of the information and just bombard us with lies. So therefore we act out of confusion and self-loathing rather than from a place of self-preservation.
Something that I sometimes struggle with is the fact that I understand that a lot of these women who are peddling this nonsense are themselves battling with body dysmorphia. Like, I mean, I feel like, I won't say any names. But it's definitely, I watch these shows. I sometimes follow them on social media, and they say things that ring off some alarm bells to me as somebody who has been battling an eating disorder for a while. And so I think it's important to call them out for their opportunism. But I wonder how much space can we hold for them, because they are battling the same forces and pressures that we are. They're just navigating it a different way.
I talk about that when I'm calling people out. In fact, I did it recently in a post about a certain very famous woman who was selling lots of corsets and diet detox products. I was like, this person has been harmed in the same way that she is harming us. She had bad role models growing up and also was bullied by social media and by the media into being this obsessed with her physique that even with $1 billion, she still feels the need to show off her weight loss, to catastrophize any weight gain, and just incessantly talk about it and show off her physique in these unrealistic ideals that she clearly sets for herself. I think it's really important to make sure that we understand and have empathy for people's own mental health problems, but we can't allow that to be a free pass for them to recycle the shit that made them fucked up. That's the thing that offends me the most. This is why I would never... Can you imagine how many weight loss and diet industry shit I've been offered? Can you imagine how many campaigns over the last 10 years? Because they always offer it to naturally slender people. And also at one point I gained a lot of weight in my career because I was on steroids for asthma, and I got bombarded. I was offered millions of pounds to align myself with a weight loss company so that they would... And this is the strategy, right? So it was fascinating for me. It was so healing for me to see the inside of what goes on. So I gained all this weight. I got contacted by all these companies who were like, what we want to do is take deliberately humiliating photographs of you on the beach, looking bigger even than you are, just sort of like eating or looking depressed, like running around. Like they want to take deliberately unflattering photographs and then chart my weight loss so that the difference between my physique after and before will be so extreme that it will make their image as a weight loss company look more effective, right? So those photographs where, you see that someone aligned themselves with, I won't name a campaign, but let's say a particular slimming campaign. And there's always like a picture of them looking depressed and sad, eyes half open, running in the beach whilst also holding a hamburger. Those are fucking staged photographs in order to exaggerate the appearance shift. So, and then they wanted to secretly train me like 4 times a week, but not announce that and just attribute my new physique to a weight loss product. I was like, get the fuck away from me.
This is so diabolical.
Isn't it amazing? And it changed my life because I used to believe all of those adverts and campaigns and all those celebrity transformations or like post mum bod. I mean, that is a whole other thing. The pressure we put on women who've just given birth to snap back. What a fucking disgrace against women. What a horror of our generation. How we don't know better than this at 2020 just sickens me. But what was I talking about? Sorry, got diverted. But right, so the campaign. So I've been offered, I would have an empire by now if I'd taken these campaigns, but I would never do it because I remember what it feels like. I know what it feels like to hate yourself and to feel like you are never good enough and to take these painful products. I mean, truly, you feel like you are shitting fire when you take these products. I would spend hours as a little 13-year-old on the toilet crying in agony because of these products that no one warned me about. So to then recycle that and re-perpetuate that, that's why I coined that term, double agents of the patriarchy. Yeah, you are, whether you know it or not, you are participating in patriarchy. You are doing their work for them, and you are a double agent because you look like us, so we trust you and we think you're on our side, but you're not. You're on the fucking patriarchy side. The decision that we are supposed to have certain physiques and tiny waists and a face that never ages and a skinny face that somehow also looks young, which is not really possible. Coco Chanel said it. After 30, you have to choose between your ass and your face. If you want a thin face, you're going to look older. That's just...
This is so true. Yes,
it's so frustrating.
It's so true.
Anyway, so, you know, it's a big fuck off conspiracy from the patriarchy against women. And any woman who participates in it is a fucking traitor. And whether or not you are mentally ill, if you have money, go and get the therapy you need. If you have body image issues, do not profit off it and re-perpetuate it for other people who don't have your access to therapy, who don't have your access to support, and who don't have your access to medical care when this shit fucks them up, which it invariably does.
Yes. I so agree with that. It's like we all have our issues. No. That is so important. Like we all have our issues, but when you choose to accept money for that, that's when I'm like, nope, you got to be called out. We got to call you to the carpet. Yeah,
exactly. I go to therapy, you know, with my body image issues. I went to therapy. I have a supportive system. I go to doctors. I can afford all of those things. I would truly rather lose everything I have than participate in putting a young girl through what I went through as a kid.
Yeah. So much of the iWay platform is about self-esteem and self-love. Mm-hmm. And I will absolutely say that I feel good in my body, and that helps me to move really confidently in life. But I do wonder, you know, what good is self-love, you know, when I'm talking to somebody who is saying that they're interpersonally or structurally discriminated against because they have dark skin or because they have acne or because they're fat, right? Like there are limits to these kind of ideas. And so how do we balance understanding that these are like macro systems with like, you know, you have like, we can sometimes choose, you know, to block things out. I sometimes have a difficulty reconciling that.
I feel proud of the fact that we try to not make iWay necessarily a self-love space. What we try to turn it into, because I think the pressure to love something that society shows that it hates so much can sometimes make someone feel a bit worse about themselves because then they feel like they're also failing at that. So what we try to be is
body neutrality.
Yeah, we talk about body neutrality, which is something. So I don't need body positivity because I'm not being medically and societally discriminated against at my size, right? Body positivity is a social political movement for women who are truly discriminated against when it comes to employment, love, Medicare. Attention. I have the privilege of not having to try to love something that society actively hates. So therefore, for me, I can't love my body because I spent so long hating it. And love feels too far away. So I practice body neutrality. I don't look in a full-length mirror. My mirror is tits up. And I often just do my makeup in a compact, and I don't weigh myself, and I wear comfy, mostly baggy clothes, and I just don't engage with my physique because for me, that's easier. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I just try not to think about it. I'm trying to get back the hours of my life that I've lost. And so for us, we're just saying, we're not going to tell you how to feel about yourself because I think that can also be really stressful for people. We're just going to tell you, try to not think about it. Try to fill your life with other things, with other priorities. Try to build other more meaningful things. And then the other thing we're trying to educate people about the system that teaches them to hate themselves and where that comes from and why it's so toxic. And the other thing we're trying to do is teach other people we're also trying to represent everyone in a really glorious light so that you can feel seen, whether you have a disability or a skin disorder or this, that, and the other, or whatever race you're from, whatever size you're from, you will feel represented, and we will show you off in a way that is beautiful and powerful and glorious. I think that's a big part of our way. But also we are trying to educate society in general about other groups so that we can start to normalize them and stop making them feel ostracized. We're trying to change people's vernacular around the way they talk about people who are different to them. You know, even things like we will teach people not to compliment someone else's weight loss. Something as small as that makes a big shift, because doing that is coding someone that you have achieved something. And when you hadn't achieved this, you were a failure before. And if you slip back to that, you will be a failure again. And I'm watching you and I am judging you and I'm monitoring you at all times. That is what the coding of, have you lost weight? You look amazing. That's what that tells you. Yeah. So just trying to change our language and our, I guess, our access to information. Is that clear? Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Do you feel like right now you are living like a happy, contented life?
I mean, not this year because the world is on fire, but I would say compared to any other year in my existence, yeah, I'm the strongest I've ever been. And that is thanks to therapy and thanks to the immense privilege of having access to also a loving, chosen family. So I'm okay now, and I went away and did the work and just tried as much as I could. I tried not to allow others to suffer the debris of my mental illness. I think I probably did that when I was younger. Like I was very slut shamey when I was younger. I have a very poor history of slut shaming in my youth on Twitter. And that was because I was a young, trigger warning, sexual assault, rape victim who was dealing with my own trauma and therefore externalizing that by just slut shaming other women and blaming other women for the way that men perceived me. And so I think that celebrities have the access to be able to pour their damage out onto young, unsuspecting followers. And I'm trying to make sure that I don't do that. And I feel like I'm personally in a better place.
Yeah. You know, I ask that because people often link how you feel about your body with your general contentedness in life. And I think that it might be kind of revolutionary if you're saying, maybe I don't feel perfectly great and super happy and confident in my body all the time, but I'm still living, I'm still content. I'm at peace.
So my goals have shifted. Like my entire happiness, I would step on a scale every single morning of every day for 20 years, and I would allow the scale to tell me how I'm allowed to feel that day. My scale would dictate, like, you've lost a pound, so today is a good day and you're allowed to feel good about yourself. And now no longer participating in that and no longer putting my value in because the whole point of I Weigh, for anyone who isn't familiar with it, is that we are challenging you to weigh yourself in the sum of all your parts. So like I weigh my relationship, my financial independence, my activism, my friendships, the laughter I have, the eating disorder I've survived, the sexual assault I've survived. I weigh the sum of my motherfucking parts. And so that has really truly gone into me. And now, because I now put my value in my own mental health and my ability to be happy and to laugh and my freedom, because of that, I genuinely feel okay. My body is not the body that I've been trained to think is right, because I will always somewhere in my brain think I'm supposed to be emaciated because I have body dysmorphia, but I no longer care as much. And that has freed up time to do everything that I've been able to achieve. All of my dreams have come true in the last couple of years. And there's no way that that's a coincidence with it's when I decided to let go of trying to obsessively control my body.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. Really. Yeah. So another thing that we have in common when I was doing this research is I was deeply and profoundly lonely as a kid. Mm-hmm. And I've heard you talk about feeling extreme loneliness. And I do wonder, because I'm working through this in therapy, how does that foundation of feeling really, really lonely during those formative years, how does it affect your ability to make relationships, to create and sustain relationships today as an adult?
I think I was lucky in that when I did find friends, I kind of found my 12, and I've generally been friends with those people all along. But I'm definitely a hugely socially anxious person. Like I was really nervous at the beginning of this podcast because I suffer from terrible social anxiety, and also because I like you so much from online. I was like, oh God, I really want her to like me, which is my inner child. speaking and screaming at me. So it definitely makes me super socially anxious. But the gift of it for me has been that I've become so accustomed to people disliking me, fundamentally, just so awfully, that it has made me able to be a woman who speaks out in public. Because when you are a woman, in particular a woman of color who speaks out in public, you have to be prepared for such a tsunami of shit and abuse and hatred and rumors and lies. And it's just so malevolent the way that people are towards you, and people are so judgmental. Even the people that you are on the same side as you are so judgmental and cruel towards you that you have to move through life without a care of being popular and without feeling a need to be loved. So being accustomed when I was younger to not being liked very much so prepared me for the life of an activist and an advocate, and for someone who speaks out, because I'm okay with being globally disapproved of or judged or spoken ill of, because I have a thick skin for a bit of rejection when I was younger. So that's why, I mean, most people would have fucked off ages ago if they'd been through the shit that I've been through online, but I stick around because I'm used to this, and I have a bigger cause, and I'm okay with the fact that I'm going to make mistakes. I will be accountable. I will teach people along the way, but you're going to have to fucking get used to me, because I'm not going anywhere, because we cannot force women to have to be perfect all along the way, as long as they're trying. We give men so many points for just trying and for showing their workings out. And for women, we try to burn them at the stake at the first hurdle, at the first time that they make a mistake. And I think that's really, really wrong. And so I'm okay with being disliked and disapproved of. And I attribute that to all of my school bullies. So thank you to them.
Yeah, I feel like I just had a light bulb moment. Like I just connected my own dots. So thank you for that. Okay. So now we've established you're a famous person. People know you. People love The Good Place. So how do you manage with your social anxiety now that so many people just want to be near you? They want the light of celebrity on them.
I don't leave the house very much, which is why lockdown has been absolutely fine for me, because I've been in lockdown since I was about 6 years old when I'm not on set. It's definitely peculiar, but I'm very fortunate that people come up to me in a very respectful and meaningful way. And because I'm not someone who people know as just a famous person who they're not quite sure why they're famous, the only people who ever approach me are normally people who have struggled with their mental health, and I weigh has meant something to them. And so because of that, it's actually very sweet, meaningful interactions. And I've generally had an all right time in America. Back in England, our paparazzi culture is fucking disgusting. And it's also such a small country that if you become remotely famous, you are treated as if you are the most famous person in the world, and people become hysterical and like mob you in the street. So that was definitely terrifying. But in the last couple of years of my career over in America, people have been very respectful and kind, and I just stay in my fucking house.
Yeah.
So I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm also busy. So
yeah, you're doing things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, as an American, like I try to like track, what's happening with Meghan Markle and and I'm like, this is different. It's a different level of invasiveness.
I know, truly anyone can be famous because we're such a tiny little country. And there's also like this just insidious undertone of racism that they always deny that exists. So in particular, if you are, a black woman in the royal family, one of the first articles I read about it, I can't remember which publication, was a woman, one of these fucking duchesses or whatever, or royal experts, as she would have referred to herself, said, Meghan Markle will certainly thicken the royal blue blood with her exotic DNA. Like the horrific and archaic level of racism in there, to think that it thickens the clear, like diluted, like pure blue blood of the royal family, of white people. It's terrifying. That was written in like 2018 in the world. In 2018, someone said that out loud. in print, like to live forever online, and the double standards between the way that she was treated versus Kate Middleton, like it's just so obvious to all of us. But if you speak out, I started speaking out about a year and a half ago about Meghan Markle's treatment, saying that the UK media is unbelievably racist, and I was called racist for calling out their racism. Which we've seen as a huge pattern this year with the black community in America. Yeah, it's just that if you call out racism, people are more afraid of being called racism than of racism itself. And that is very true of the UK media. So it was very claustrophobic there. It was definitely a part of why I left. And, you know, I remember when I was 26 and I gained all that weight, paparazzi started parking outside my house 24 hours a day and just photographing only pictures of my arse or me bending over or me midair. Somehow they always managed to find me midair. I don't know what I was ever doing. And calling me a fat cunt to my face, hoping that I would burst into tears in front of the photographer so that the narrative they will be able to portray is like, I'm having a breakdown or I'm so sad. Something I really want people to know is that in those pictures of me in my fatter years, when I was on those meds, it was a really happy time in my life. I was having loads of great sex. I was making loads of fucking money. I was really fulfilled in my work. But the narrative you will see in any photograph of me in that time, they only show the photographs where you're not having fun. You're not smiling. You're not looking loved up. They get you always on your own in a like sort of pensive moment, looking like you might be sad. So they can paint the idea that fat women are sad and lonely and unhappy and unfulfilled. And they always, now that I'm thin, photographers are so respectful of me. They always try to make sure that I'm ready for the photograph. They let me put my shopping bags down and they let me smile for the picture, because that fulfills the patriarchal narrative of, oh, she's thin and she's happy now.
Totally.
And yet my thinnest years in this industry were my most suicidal, my worst eating disorder, wasn't able to have any sex, didn't have an orgasm for like 3 years between 24 and 26 because I didn't have the energy to fuck anyone because I was so anorexic. But that's not the story told in photographs.
Yeah. You were a TV presenter. We would call it a host. Like you worked for MTV at that time?
No, I worked for Channel 4, which is similar. It was like a TRL type show. But
that's what I think. That's what the connection for me. Okay. So when you gained weight, did you get any professional feedback on it?
Constantly. Yeah. I got like dropped from a clothing line over it because they didn't want me anymore now that I was no longer thin enough. I received constant ridicule and people were very, very rude to me about my size. And when I said I wanted to go to America, I was told that I was too fat by English people. I hadn't even gotten to America yet. Americans hadn't had the chance to tell me I was too fat yet. I was just told I was too old. I was 28. I was told I was too fat, and I was told that my ethnicity, I was too ethnic, that my ethnicity isn't something valued in America, that they only like white or black. Like, so Asians are just not a thing here. That's what I was told in order to fearmonger me out of moving to LA. And then I came here and look what happened. Yeah. I did fine.
Oh, we love a triumph. Okay. Okay. So I want to talk about social media because, like, this is a thing in your life.
Do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a disaster. Yeah.
So, like I said, I so freaking appreciate the way that you use your platform to speak out on really, really important issues. Thanks. But you've had some scandals, quote unquote. And I don't think. Yes. I don't think that all call outs are bad. I don't think that they're all unfounded, but there have been a couple of times when people have called you out where I've just been like, really? Like, what's going on? Like, this can't be about the thing that y'all are. And I think that I've DM'd you about it before. And I know that it's not fun to be dragged. No. But I do wonder, it doesn't seem like that has made you more cautious.
I definitely am more cautious, and I should be more fucking cautious. I was just such a loose cannon for years because I've been on social media for 11 years and no one was paying any attention to me. So no one was editing my behavior or telling me I was wrong. No one was telling me anything. I was just tweeting into the abyss. And suddenly every single thing you say goes viral or makes headline news, like Page 6, is something that is very hard to adjust to. Because you've never been listened to before. Never mind every single, like I could fart, I could queef, and it would make front news sometimes, front page news. It happened so quickly that people became engaged with every single thing that I was saying that I wasn't aware of the shift in my responsibility to be more fucking careful, more educated, more thoughtful, and not speak out yet on things that I don't understand anything about. You know, when I first started speaking out on the things that I did know about, which were consent and eating disorders, when you speak out about anything, then people are like, now you need to speak out on everything. And people would doorstep me with really, really tricky questions. And I would panic and be like, if I don't answer this, then people are going to think I don't care. So I would answer before I knew what the fuck I was talking about. And I was also having such a chaotic time in the last couple of years where I was so busy, like working 18 hours a day and going through a lot of shit emotionally in my personal family life. And so I was just chaotic. I didn't stop to realize that everything is shifting very quickly. And I need to be much more fucking careful because I can reach a lot of people, misinform a lot of people, and do a lot of harm by making mistakes. So yes, I've become more cautious. Not in a way that makes me feel muzzled, but makes me feel more mature and less chaotic and more thoughtful.
Yeah,
and
maybe
I'm
that's
so
what I'm picking up on. You still seem free.
Yeah, I feel fucking free as shit. I feel, if anything, freer now that I feel more in control of my own mouth. But I feel so endlessly grateful for the amount of people who've called me out when I made mistakes, when I have stumbled over myself, when I have when I've shown my ignorance. This whole obsession with, you know, these very, very powerful, predominantly white celebrities being like, cancel culture. It's like, you haven't actually been cancelled. First of all, almost no one ever does get cancelled. Interestingly, I mean, white billionaires in particular can't be cancelled. So J.K. Rowling, I don't know what she's talking about. You can't deplatform someone with that much power. But my point being that I don't consider that cancellation. I've never lost a job because I've been criticised. I've never lost money, or I haven't been killed by it. My life hasn't been ended. I have just been called out. There's a difference between call-out culture and cancel culture. And so I'm grateful that I haven't been patronised by people who think just because I'm a little woman, I can't take being called out by other women. That's a fucking toxic part of our society now, that if you criticise another woman, you are called unfeminist. We have to check each other. And I'd rather be checked by a woman than by a man, frankly. And I like the fact that she thinks that I can grow, and therefore she's calling me out. It means she has faith in me.
Yes, I think this is so freaking healthy. And you touched on something that I also think is really important, is sometimes we just don't have the range. Like nobody can be an expert on everything. Okay. So I think that we should normalize people saying, I don't have an answer for you. I don't know. I need to do some more reading. I need to talk to some activists. But the social media culture incentivizes people just going off and saying whatever. But then if you make a mistake, you will be slapped down.
Yeah. And also, what the fuck was I doing trying to say everything, trying to discuss these incredibly complex and nuanced issues on Twitter? I had 280 characters. Was I high? What was I doing? But I needed to use that. I needed to use that to get what I have now. But now I have long form content. I have a podcast, I have a YouTube channel, and I have a big Instagram following where I have more space to have these discussions thoughtfully, where I don't fuck people up. Like, I don't piss people off because I have tried to narrow a hugely important and contextual issue into 280 characters. It's reductive and really dangerous.
Yeah, I'm really empathetic when it comes to this, because to err is human, right? Like, we're all, now that we all have these platforms, we're all learning and growing in public. But how do you feel now that you have made a few public missteps that you've apologized for and tried to make amends for? There are definitely people who still think that you're just problematic and irredeemable. How do you deal with that?
That's okay. Like, I've never invested myself in the opinions of other people. So I'm okay with that. And I also understand that, you know what, when we look back in 10 years, my record will show that I consistently improved. I was accountable, and I taught people along the way with me. And I am proud of being someone who is, I'm okay with people just writing me off. That's their up to them. Like, this isn't a popularity contest for me, but I think it's so important to be a transparent person. Another thing I didn't see when I was younger was people fucking up and saying, I'm sorry, and showing the workings out. Remember, like, in maths class, I don't know if you had this, but I would lose marks if I didn't show how I arrived at the answer. Even if I got the answer right, I would lose marks. And I think that really stuck with me. It really resonated with me as a human being, where I'm like, you should show people, as a famous person, as someone who's in the limelight, who has this huge platform and this access to people, who's being hailed as some sort of fucking saint. it's so important that you debunk that and show them your humanity, your fallibility, and how you arrived at being this person that sometimes has the right take on things.
Yeah.
And so I think I find it very important to say sorry publicly and be accountable. It is ridiculous the way that people clown you for admitting that you're wrong. That is a new toxic part of our culture, the way that people actually pile on worse when I admit to making a mistake than if I just ignore it. But I'm determined to not let that deter me from being honest and transparent, because it has helped way more people than it has offended to see me just be willing to say, you know what, I fucked up. And actually, guys, this is the thing that I said wrong. This is the better way to say it so that you don't make the same mistake I did. I've helped more people than I've hurt. So as long as I keep progressing, I'm okay. I think it's so dumb when people think that us learning and growing and admitting to that is a weakness. The only weakness is not trying. That's where failure lies. Yeah. That's death. Yeah.
Are there any topics that you simply will not talk about?
Yes, world politics. I try my best if it's a humanitarian issue, I'm very, very happy to lean in. But when it comes to actual politics, I am so fucking ignorant. I'm trying to educate myself, but every country has such specific different policies and political agendas and different histories that there's so much to speak out about and so much to know and so much nuance that I think that, and also, if I'm honest, there are two reasons. One is that learning all the different politics of every country is very, very hard, and I don't know enough about it yet, and I don't want to make a mistake and misinform 5 million people. The other thing I don't want to do is receive death and rape threats, which I get when I speak out about politics. That is the number one reason I don't speak out. So when people are like, please condemn India, please condemn Pakistan, please condemn like what's happening in this part in Yemen or what's happening in this part of the world, I will always speak out on what's happening to the civilians of those countries. But when it comes to politics, when as a woman you step out into the politics, especially with the Middle East or South Asia, the way that people sent the messages that you are sent, I've been sent dead animals before when I've done it. I've been sent an unbelievable amount of graphic sexually violent messages. And so for me, that's where I draw the line. I'm like, I respect anyone who can put up with that. But when it comes to the death and rape threats, I'm out. I'm willing to bare my soul and be open about my history and my mental health. And I feel like I do a lot for society, but that's where my mental health, I'm too traumatized to be able to cope with that. So world politics is where I try and stay out of it, because men become unbelievably violent when women speak out in that space. And I'm not trying to discourage other women from speaking out in that space. I'm just saying I am too much of a coward in that. That's where my cowardice lies. Yeah. I can't deal with the rape threats.
Yeah, but I think it's important to be honest about that. Like, it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
No, it's not. It's not. And like, I receive a lot of very personal pushback generally, but that's where it feels like you're endangering yourself sometimes. So we need more men to fucking help women speak out about our rights that are being harmed. We don't need them to do it for us, but they need to fucking step in and help. This shouldn't be on us to fix. We need their fucking help. And so I'm always trying to implore men, in particular men of color, to step in and fucking help undo the toxicity.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like these cancel culture discussions, I feel like they're not useful because people try to use cancel culture to describe 1,000 different things. And it feels like usually when people are invoking cancel culture, it's like the most privileged people, the richest people, the people with the biggest platforms. And maybe there is something a little bit toxic about the way that people sometimes engage. But like, I don't want to talk about J.K. Rowling. I'm sorry. I don't want to talk about that. Right. Like if we're going to talk about it, like I want to talk about everyday people being piled on. Right.
Yes.
And but it seems like that's not the sexy thing.
But also, I mean, interesting, Wiley just got taken off Twitter, right? On his, like, this big, and rightfully so, no one should be able to get away with being racist on the internet. But they let white people get away with that same rhetoric and behavior for like a decade before they got deplatformed. So that is a black man actually receiving actual cancellation. He's been deplatformed, right? Right. Kevin Hart, Nick Cannon, like we've seen black men actually lose work and lose jobs and lose platforms. But white people, generally, it's very rare to see them. I think Amy Cooper was like one of the biggest cases of someone actually being cancelled, lost her job, temporarily lost her dog, etc. But predominantly, we don't see people actually get lost. What we need to do is set actual guidelines, right? Call out culture just means being piled onto, perhaps, and being told that you are wrong and criticized. And it's very painful for about 3 days, and then life goes on. Cancellation means actually losing your rights, or losing some part of your freedom, or losing your access to work, or public domain. I don't know. So that's what actual cancellation is. We need to learn to differentiate between the two, so that we don't cry cancel culture when it hasn't fucking happened. But we also should look at the culture of calling for cancellation. I'm not necessarily, well, J.K. Rowling's a bit different because now she's on her like 5th repeat offence, but I'm not trying to take away the rights or the jobs of privileged people who could actually do a lot of good with their platform and with their finances. I think that it could be helpful to have them as allies. I just want them to stop doing what they're doing. I call people out. I don't cancel many people. I feel like a lot of people on the internet, as you know, a desire for power and being fed up with waiting for responsible, powerful people, they do call for actual cancellation. They do call for someone to completely lose everything that they have at their first offense. So I do think there is a bloodthirst to see someone, especially someone privileged, lose everything they have, because cancellation actually happens to people who are powerless. It happens to people like regular people who can maybe speak out about an abusive boss and then they get fired. That's where actual cancel culture exists. And so I think because they are sick of the double standard for people in power, they therefore call for cancellation. But it's not just for people in power now. It's become everyone. Everyone is cancelling everyone. It's just like the Hunger Games on social media right now. And so everyone's just trying to, I think what I'm trying to say is that there is a lack of forgiveness, right? It's fine to call someone out, but to say that they are incapable of ever changing is a different thing. And I think that's what we have veered towards, is writing someone off as never being able to change or come back from their mistake. That is fucking dangerous, because then what is the point of activism? What is the point of any activism if we don't believe in the ability to change? If we don't believe in fundamental systemic and human change, there's no point in doing what we do. Why even bother speaking out about anything if you think it's falling on, upon deaf ears? So I do think that we could stand to be a bit more thoughtful in, yes, calling someone out, yes, making them take a time out and making them not just say they're going to do better, but actively do better, but then re-allow them into society if what they've done isn't irrevocable harm. Harvey Weinstein can fuck off forever.
But, I think serial rapists, like they can.
That's irrevocable harm. He's taken away people. He's traumatized people forever. So therefore, he can't be allowed back in. But someone who's made a mistake on Twitter, I think, can and should be able to. And they can help people. They can educate people who've made similar mistakes.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. I think often what we see happen during these pile-ons is people are looking for catharsis. Like you mentioned, a lot of times marginalized communities, we are realizing like we finally have some power, like our voices can finally be heard, like we can finally exact some kind of consequence for you stepping outside of the bounds of common decency. So we're going to do that. But I hope that we are centering like an ethic of justice, right? So I don't just want catharsis. Like I don't just want to feel good from feeling powerful in a moment from piling on. Like I actually want justice, and justice requires you to come back and make amends. Like justice requires us to outline how you can make this right. And then, once we're restored, once we're repaired, then you can come back and join us again. But I do think that indefinite consequences, that is not how you build a healthy community. That is not how you create accountability.
It devalues progress. There was the point in anyone doing the work and changing if they're never going to be allowed to re-enter society. If they can never, ever, ever be forgiven for something they did 1 year ago, 10 years ago, 25 years ago, that wasn't, like I said, irrevocably harmful, then people aren't going to be motivated to fucking change. There has to be some incentive, and that incentive is being re-allowed back into the tribe.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, have you heard about how like people get pushed off of Twitter? And by the way, I will also say that like I am okay with Nick Cannon and Kevin Hart like losing stuff. Like I'm okay, but I think that there is a racial justice thing there. Like,
that's
are we harsher? Are we harsher on Black men than we like? Yes, like, but you know,
all I was pointing out. I wasn't saying
you can't just be saying homophobic and anti-Semitic stuff.
I know, I agree. That wasn't what I was saying. Sorry, I was just saying that it's very interesting that when we see cancel culture take place, some of the only famous people we've seen have all coincidentally been Black men.
Yes.
You know, and I legally have no idea what happened exactly with Gabrielle Union on the inside, but she speaks out to HR and then she loses her job on AGT. So it's just like there's definitely a racial element who can actually get cancelled. And we need to be very fucking aware of that double standard before white people start calling out cancel culture. Because name me enough white people who've been thrown out on their first offense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really, really important. And that's a conversation that white people need to be having amongst themselves. Yeah, like, stop being racist.
But let's fucking point it out. Like, don't try cancel culture when it isn't happening to your people.
Totally. Yes, I agree with you. Okay, so I will admit that I am a cynic. But sometimes I'm caught off guard by how much cynicism gets directed towards you. So like you, before the world shut down, you made it a point to say, I'm going to wear what I want to wear on the red carpet. And sometimes I'm going to do my own makeup and I'm going to ask not to be retouched. And people are like, well, you're beautiful. It doesn't matter. And I'm like, okay, well, if it didn't matter, then nobody would get retouched or everybody would do their own makeup. Mm-hmm. Are you ever like disheartened by the fact that people just think that you're always angling, that you're just trying to be strategic? And like, I just find that to be really sad.
I'm a woman. Look at the story of Adam and Eve. They always think women have a sinister intention and that women are not to be trusted and we are always trying to corrupt. Our society fundamentally does not trust women. And the way that we look for any single sign of a mistake or manipulation of women, the narratives we build around women, look again at Meghan Markle. Look at the way that she's been portrayed as this scheming, planning, like everything's insincere, everything has an agenda. I'm so glad that I'm in my 30s because I'm so aware. Sorry, that's the police. They're coming to arrest me. I'll stop until the siren goes by. Okay. I already knew that was going to happen. So I understand patriarchy. I understand misogyny and women carry it as well. And so I understand that people are naturally inclined to not trust a woman. I also understand that I am a privileged, famous-ish person, right? So how many of those people have been responsible and have actually bothered to get involved and try and make mistakes and get scrappy and change laws? Like, not a lot. So if I'm a fairly different breed of quote-unquote celebrity, I get that people are like, what is this? What's she trying to do? What's her agenda? How is she making money from this? I definitely don't fucking make money from this, Kimberly. Like, I don't. I've lost so much money from doing this. I have to pass up so many jobs and I fund all of my own activism company by myself. This is not a money-making scheme. This isn't making me more famous. It's sure as shit not making me more happy. It's not less stressful. My life is so fucking stressful. This shit is really hard and people really take attacks on me personally. I do this because I actually care, but I don't expect people to trust me right now. I'm okay with being misunderstood in the present. Later on, my work will check out and I'm confident in that. And so if people don't trust me now, it's not my responsibility, nor is it possible for me to force them to like or trust me. That's okay. That's not what I'm fucking here for anyway. I'm here to create laws that will protect children. And that's my job. And I know what my job is. And I'm not trying to be anyone's best friend. I have my 12 friends.
Yeah. I have my 12 friends too. Shout out to them.
Yeah.
No, I think that's really important if you're doing public work. Sometimes people ask me, like, how do you handle so much negativity? And I'm like, I'll go to the people who are just not online. Like my friends are like, I have a real job. I'm sorry. I don't know what this drama you're talking about is. And that is so freaking important.
I know. The only thing I would say that has caught me off guard emotionally from a mental health point of view when it comes to this and the pushback is that I was always ready to be called out for the things I had done wrong. What I was never ready for was being called out for things that I haven't actually done. that has been something that has stunned me. And now looking back, I honestly don't know how Meghan Markle is still alive. Because when you get criticized and called out for and judged for something that you have not actually done, that isn't true, just an egregious rumor or lie, that hurts and that gaslights you in a way that is very, very toxic on the inside. That has been something gross. And I realized there is a pattern here. Discredit is the new death. We can't just take women and kill them anymore. They can't just disappear in a random mystery car accident. So we just kill their reputation. We kill their credibility with lies. That has been a thing that has been really vile for me to have to realize. But again, I'm okay. And this shit just isn't real and it doesn't last. And you just have to swallow your pride and keep going and keep highlighting the inaccuracies and keep fighting back, keep pushing back on the media and the people who lie, and just stand up for yourself. They want to shame me into silence and into the shadows. And I refuse to do that, because if I do that, I'm sending a message to every other girl who wants to speak out that it's not worth it. It is fucking worth it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the only thing I would say has been really hard, was all the lies, all the rumors about me.
Yeah. And then I feel like you are a famous person. I feel like that you were tentative to say it, but you are a famous person now. But I'm sure it must be really, really difficult that when somebody wants to say something untruthful about you, then it's like a viral headline, right? It must be very difficult for you to escape it. I can just turn off the phone, but like it's going to be on CNN if it's you. It's going to be on the that
was really hard when someone was like, she's got Munchausen's because Mark Ronson said she lied about bees. First of all, Mark Ronson fucking lied in that video. Second of all, and I've confronted him personally about that. But second of all, they're saying that, oh, I can't possibly have had all these illnesses because I look well. It's like the condition I have, the biggest thing that's held against us, we have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, is that we look well on the outside, but we're fucking crumbling on the inside. My external appearance, we have to stop judging people's health via how they look. We shouldn't say people are, it's the same thing with fat women. We shouldn't look at Lizzo and be like, she's unhealthy. Lizzo can fucking run rings around me and pick me up and throw me out of a fucking window. And she has lower cholesterol than I do, and has had less cancer than I have had. She's way fucking healthier than me. But people would look at me and see she has no health problems, and look at Lizzo and say she's full of health problems. It's actually very much so the other way around. So the Munchausen's rumor about me, that was really gross, because I grew up as an unbelievably sick kid, and I have a condition that means that I wake up in pain, I go to bed in pain and swollen. I live a very difficult life. It's very hard to be an actress in this industry with an invisible disability, because you're always trying to cover it up so that people won't fire you for being difficult or needing to. I never take time off when I need to, etc. I pulled out of a big action movie last year because I knew that my bone condition would be difficult for me to do that job. And so to be then gaslit and mocked and have your mental health and physical health just ridiculed en masse by truly the world was really fucking hard. But you know, bigger things have happened, and I'm not sitting here licking my wounds. You know, a pandemic happened after that, and we've seen all of these horrifying murders at the hands of police brutality. Like, I'm fine now, but at the time it's just like, what a gross, cowardly way to take down a woman, that because you don't have enough to pin her on, you just make something up to try and make her just disappear. And it normally works. Everyone else went quiet. Jennifer Lawrence, like Anne Hathaway, these women were like, okay, I'll just make myself smaller and I'll go away because you don't like me. And I'm not criticizing them, I understand. But that's what they want. So I'm sticking around. Tough shit.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to end on, I know that you've talked about how in your past you've been called out on saying things that people felt were slut shamey. And I get it, right? And I saw some of the tweets and it's like, okay, whatever. I want women to be confident in their bodies and their sexualities, but I do sometimes feel conflicted about the fact that the images that women create, the contemporary images that women create that are supposed to represent sexual liberation, look a whole lot like the images that were created not by women, like pre-sexual liberation. Like there's a complete overlap. And so I don't know exactly how to work through that. I don't want to slut shame. I don't want to make anybody feel embarrassed, but how do we balance the fact that I want variety in sexual liberation. I want variety in body positivity.
That's what it is, right? So that's exactly what it is. This is the one thing I feel sure of, because it's a really difficult conversation, and we need to examine we have been programmed to think our sexuality should all look and be a certain way. But, and I'm not trying to take away our autonomy or our decisions, but everything is targeted towards the same type of patriarchal gaze, right? The body types are all the same. The way in which we move and we dance. The thing that drives me the most mad is the fact that in almost, whether it's a man's video or a woman's video, the woman is the one who's half naked doing all the work, and the man is wearing outdoor winter layers sitting on his fucking ass. That's my fucking problem. What I liked about, like, you know, let's just take Madonna's 80s sexuality, right? Everyone was fucking everyone. Everyone was trying. Women were kissing women. Men were kissing men. Like, it felt like a much freer space where everyone had to do work in the bedroom. The thing that I still have a problem with is when we are sending out the message that we are the one who have to wear a fucking thong that is like dental floss for our asshole and dance and do all of the work turning the man on, and he just sits there and enjoys it. This is why so many men are bad in bed, because they don't know that they're supposed to try, because the messaging is you just sit there and a woman does all the fucking work. We need to see a reversal of this shit. I want to see men doing the work to arouse us. I want to see them in some fucking thongs. I want to see some balls. Maybe not all the balls, but some balls I would like to see. I would like to see them expose themselves. And that's what I fucking love about Megan Thee Stallion. And her lyrics are all about men pleasing her. Yes. I'm so here for that. I'm so here for her stance that she's not here to be anyone's plaything. That it's like, this is an equal exchange. Come here and pleasure me. Otherwise you can't come back. That's it. And I think that we need more of that rhetoric where we teach little boys who are watching these videos thinking, you know, what I'm trying to say is that when young kids, girls and boys, see these videos, they are programmed to think, girls are thinking, well, I'm going to have to do all the work and I'm going to have to do 2 hours in hair and makeup before we have sex. And a boy who's watching it is thinking, well, she's going to need to do 2 hours in hair and makeup and she's going to have to do all the work and I'm just going to fucking sit here. That is the thing that I think is the most toxic, is that bad sex is going to keep happening until we start to put more mainstream information out there, in that it's a very much so a two-way street.
Yeah, I agree.
Is that fair? That's not too shamey, is it?
That's not shamey at all, I think. I do think that, oh goodness, this is so hard to navigate, but I do think that we need to really be cognizant of the way that, like, capitalism structures some of the ways that we choose to present ourselves and adorn ourselves, because we are trying to appeal to the widest audience. Like, you don't even have to be an entertainer to have a desire to appeal to the broadest audience, right? If you want the most men to look at you, if you want the most likes on Instagram, right? If you want your videos or whatever, like, I do think that there's something about the marketplace that really deeply influences how a lot of women choose to adorn ourselves. And it's easy to just be like, oh, I chose this, right? But like, I think it's useful for us to think about why did you make that choice, right? Like, and then, unpack it. And then, like, if you really do the work and you're breaking it down, you might say, I really like it. Or we unpack it, we break it down and say, oh, I made this choice because I wanted this man, or I wanted more eyeballs, or I wanted more attention, because I can go off on this. But, you know, like, attention is a new form of currency, right? Like, in our contemporary era. And so, like, okay, and I'm not going to shame you. Like, if you want attention, like, that's not my MO at all, right? Because we're all just trying to make lives for ourselves the best way we know how. I just think we should have some critical conversations about how we arrive at our choices.
I agree. And also we should just have more diverse representation. If we had more diverse representation, then beauty standards would shift. They've already shifted a bit in that Black and brown women finally have a space within the beauty standard. And now we just need to keep shifting. We need more fat women. We need disabled women. We need all kinds of people with different skin tones. We need more Winnie Harlows. Like, we need more diversity. I think that will impact things. And, you know, we also just have to understand how capitalism and materialism works, right? Capitalism depends on people who are not content. People who aren't content go out and buy things more often. People who are happy with their lives don't buy as much shit. I haven't bought as much shit in the last 4 years as I did in the last 30, because I'm actually content now. So I don't need to fill that void with stuff. So the way that they ensure that we will be uncontent is to keep setting unrealistic ideals and, like, keep making the bar higher and higher and higher for what lifestyle we should have, what car we should be driving, what hotel we should be staying at, and what we should look like. And that's how society, that's how materialism thrives, is because they make sure that we never feel like what we have is good enough. And whatever we bought, they update it the next year. So now we no longer think that we have the cool thing. And so therefore we need to go and buy the new thing. So that's a big part of my use of my platform, is just to educate people on this system and point out, isn't this fucking strange? Don't you think this is weird and gross and not very spiritually wholesome? And I think that just waking people up to that is all you really need to do. But yeah, it's terrifying. And I think we need to unpack that. We need to register that you don't need 10,000 lip glosses. You don't need to use anti-aging cream and anti-cellulite cream and this, that, and the other. A big decision I made, and I know this isn't like a big, brave thing to do, but on The Good Place, makeup artists, and also on every TV show I've ever done, makeup artists always try and cover up all the stretch marks I have on my tits. I have long stretch marks on my breasts because they grew very fast when I was younger. And I find that so offensive. And so I always refuse to cover them up in any photo shoot, in anything I do, even a billboard campaign, because it's so important that we normalize stretch marks, skin abnormalities. When I have spots, I leave them in a magazine cover. When I have cellulite, I show it on Instagram. And I know this isn't super revolutionary, but it's just so important because what we're seeing is preened emojis. Also, lastly, look at aging. Look at the way that we treat aging. That is fucking terrifying when it comes to women. We're teaching them to fight time and gravity. Look at the way that we portray men on the front cover of magazines, like in high definition with grey hair, looking all sexy and dignified and older. And then we made all the women from Ocean's 8 look like a fucking emoji film. Right. They were so airbrushed. On the cover of all magazines, you see 50-year-old women looking like Kaya Garber.
Yeah.
What is that doing to us? It's
as much as I love Jennifer Lopez, and I love her and I stand her forever, because like I mentioned, she was my like big booty ideal when I was, when I was 10. But all 50-year-old women are not gonna age like Jennifer Lopez, right? Like that cannot be our ideal. That cannot be the standard.
I agree. But also, I think Jennifer Lopez, I just worked with her, and up close, that woman has not had work done. She is just naturally, she does look like that. But other women, we need more transparency. Look, if you're going to get stuff done to your face, you can do that. I'm not someone who's like anti-surgery. I think you can't be pro-trans rights and then be anti-cosmetic surgery. I don't think that's fair or civilized or like okay at all. I'm pro whatever gets you through the fucking day, whatever makes you feel better about yourself. What I'm not okay with is the lack of transparency. If you get fucking Botox and you get fucking fillers and you get a nose job and this, that, and the other, or you have weight loss surgery, just fucking own up to it. That's why I like Cardi B and I like Chrissy Teigen, for the fact that they are just so open about all the shit they do. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that stuff if that's what's going to make you happy, but you cannot hold people to an unrealistic ideal that you yourself do not meet. That is insane to me. And Photoshop should not be allowed. We should not be allowed to airbrush people to look different to how they do if those people are profiting off of their fucking aesthetic that is faked digitally. That's just so immoral to me.
Yeah. I think, you talked about not getting rid of your stretch marks. I think that things don't have to be revolutionary for them to be useful. I think that we are all making so many choices every day. Yeah. And like in those small choices, we can choose to subvert the system that we've been socialized into. Like that stuff is important.
Yeah. Thousands of women write to me all the time about feeling relieved to see my armpit folds or my arm hair or my like little bit of, I don't know, like my miscoloration around my mouth or my stretch marks on my tits have made so many people feel better about theirs because they thought there was something fucking wrong with them. People will always think that there's something wrong with them if they don't see themselves represented in all of their differences.
Yeah. Well, that is all I have. Thank you so much for your time, Jameela. This was incredible. We had some ups and downs in this conversation, but we worked through it. We made it through.
I love you loads. Thank you for having me. And it was a really interesting discussion.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Hit me up on Instagram or Twitter. Buy some merch. Sign up for the email newsletter. I appreciate y'all for hanging out. I know this was a long video. I'll see you next time. Bye.